You want to know something crazy? It turns out that 58% of Americans have less than $1,000 in their savings account. And what that means is if you take 1, 2, 3 people, put them in one room, only one of those 3 people has $1,000 or more in their savings account. Now in the UK it's 33%. 33% of people in the UK have over £600 in their savings account. So it looks like people from the UK are better at saving than those over the pond in the US. Now those are some pretty crazy stats that were taken even before the coronavirus pandemic hit us. But interestingly, historical data shows that during times of uncertainty, like the coronavirus, people actually save more money, which makes sense, right? And it just goes to show that we can save, but most of the time, we just don't want to. Whew. Not bad. But I'm a saver, not a spender. So alright, so in this video I'm going to share the best ways to save money and the long-term benefits if you keep it up over an extended period of time. Firstly, if we're looking to save, we need goals. We need to set goals on how much we want to save over a set period of time. Now I just want to share with you a 1979 Harvard study on goal setting which analysed a graduating class, and it found that 84% of the entire class had set no goals at all whatsoever. 13% of the class had set written goals but had no concrete plans. 3% of that class had set both written goals and concrete plans. The results, well, you've probably somewhat guessed it. 10 years later, the 13% of the class that had set written goals but had no concrete plans were making twice as much as the 84% of the class that had set no goals at all. The apparent kicker is that the 3% of the class that had written both goals and a plan were making 10 times as much as the other 90% of the class. I personally have not seen any evidence on this study, but it does help to highlight something very important. To achieve our goals, they need to be written down and planned in advance. In this video, we will be looking at ways to get you thinking more about saving, and let me know in the comments what your savings goals are for 2020. Now, I started saving when I was working in London as a project manager for a construction company building hotels and museums. And I want to be completely transparent here, so I'm going to share with you that awkward question that everyone's probably wondering: how much were you earning at that time? And at that time, I was earning £50,000, which is about 60,000 US dollars. Interesting story, before I started working for that company, I was actually offered a role elsewhere, which paid higher. But at the time, I decided to decline that and go for the company that I actually ended up working for. And it was a good decision because I was able to grow more in that role, and there were more progression opportunities, which eventually led to me earning more money and being able to save more. Now, my first financial goal was to pay off any debt that I had, and at the time I had £25,000 worth of student loan debt, which is about 30,000 US dollars. Now, the main ways I was able to save were by 1, setting up a very detailed budget plan. I did this using Google Sheets, which is a free online resource. All you need to do is have a Gmail account, go ahead and sign up, link in the description. Now, once I had my budget written down showing everything that I spent my money on every month, I was surprised. I was like, holy shit, I'm spending £500 every month on eating out. That's just gotta stop. And I'm sure, guys, that you're going to be surprised too just how much more of an insight into your spending you'll get if you just write it down, and this will help you target where you can make those cutbacks every month and how to start saving more and more money. Now, I'm not trying to say that we should all be complete cheapskates. I know that there's a fine line between saving for the future and enjoying life, and that's going to be different for everyone. But for me, I try to save every penny that I can, every penny that I think is an unnecessary spend. One example that I can share with you is that me and my wife have this rule, that when we go out for dinner or with friends or when we're traveling, we try not to spend money on drinks. So we try not to buy Coke or Fanta or wine or beer unnecessarily, unless it's a celebration or something like that, and here's why. Say you were to go out twice a week in London and you were like, yeah, I'll have a drink, yeah, I'll have a beer, yeah, bring me another one, I'll have another beer. You know how it goes. Say you'd have 2 drinks each time you went out, so you'd have 4 drinks a week. In London, that's going to set you back about 20, 25 quid. 25 times 52, if you were to do this every week, is £1,300. Go on, split it away on drinks. For what? For a beer belly? No thanks. And I honestly think that most people wouldn't even consider this as a strategy to save money, but when you add up the numbers and you see that you could be spending thousands of pounds, thousands of dollars every year on drinks that are only going to give you a beer belly, I mean, for me anyway, it's a no-brainer. And while we're on the topic, I just want to share one more example with you, which is something I got a lot of stick for at work, because every single day, consistently, I would spend £3 on my lunch. I'd go to Tesco and I'd get a £3 meal deal, whereas my colleagues would go to all these fancy shops because we were working in Covent Garden. They'd end up spending anywhere between £8 and £10 every day on food, and I would every day, without fail, be going to Tesco to get my £3 meal deal. And again, that sounds like nothing, right? But let's do the maths and see what the numbers come out at. So say I'm spending £3 every day on a meal deal and my colleagues are spending roughly £9 on their fancy food. That's a difference of £6. And in a year, I think there's 261 working days. Minus holiday, we're looking at 240 days. So 240 times 6 is over £1,400. Anyway, going back to your budget sheet that I hope you create, I'd recommend going through it with a fine-tooth comb, trying to filter out everything that you don't need to be spending every month, and then try living that way for a month and see how you get on. And it could involve you saying no to your colleagues when you go out for a beer on a Thursday night and other luxuries, but trust me, it's going to be worth it. Unless your priorities are to live in the now, because who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. You might get hit by a truck, right? I don't think so. But anyway, it's up to you. It's up to the individual. Everyone's different. So it's whatever makes you happy. Now, when you've got this all written down in your spreadsheet and you've got a spending plan, add your income to that spreadsheet and calculate the percentage that you're trying to save. To transfer the amount that you want to save into a separate account, this can be into your investment account, it can be into an ISA or an IRA if you're from the US. And what you want to do is mentally convince yourself that this new account or wherever you put the money is totally off limits. Just imagine that the money's not yours and all you can do with it is save it and invest it. So whether that figure ends up being 30%, 20%, 10%, whatever you can afford, what you got to do is send it to your off-limit account the same day that you get paid. That's really important. Send it over the same day you get paid so that you're not tempted to spend it and it's set aside. And what's going to happen is that over time, you're going to see how much your money is growing. Say in 6 months' time, you can have a look into your investment account. You can see how much your money has grown. And this is going to provide you, what it did for me anyway, with extra motivation to keep saving and try and save more and more every month. So other key areas to consider are, we've already looked at food, we're going to look at housing and travel and transport. So within housing, what a lot of people do to try and save money is get a roommate. And I've seen a lot of people call this house hacking, whereby you have a roommate, you split all the bills, you split the rent, split your Wi-Fi, split your phone bill, everything is split in 2 or 3 or however many of you can fit into a house. And more often than not, you can actually then afford to live in a bigger, nicer house, potentially in a nicer area of whatever city that you live in. But what I'm going to concentrate on in this video is more around the geographic location of where you live. Now, I used to live in London, but I'm in the middle of moving out because the cost of living in a city like London, New York, or in the US like San Francisco is just insane. It's really crazy and it's totally not worth it, at least I think anyway. So if your job isn't location dependent, I'd seriously consider where you're living and whether moving somewhere cheaper is an option for you. Now, chances are, even if your job is location dependent, your skills are going to be transferable. There's jobs everywhere, and wherever you move to, you're likely going to find another job anyway. And this is where it gets interesting because a lot of people settle for the job they have, they're comfortable, they're happy with their working environment, their colleagues and things like that. But when you think about moving and potentially changing jobs, this actually opens you up to all sorts of other opportunities, such as negotiating a higher salary if you start another job somewhere else. Now, also within housing, and something that a lot of people can't even be bothered to think about, is reducing your bills on things like Wi-Fi and home insurance. And I'm sure you search for cheaper car insurance every 12 months knowing that your premium's going to go up, right? So why aren't we doing the same for home Wi-Fi and things like that? Now, the chances are you're probably paying more than you expect for these things because prices always get jacked up without people even realizing. So jump on a comparison website or even just phone up your current provider. Chances are you'll be able to negotiate a better deal. Now, travel and transport is another huge expense that we can try and make some cutbacks on. Now, my personal solution to try and make cutbacks on travel and expense is by car sharing. So I share a car with my wife, and what we do is take it in turns to drive to work versus take the train. So if Evie's driving to work, I'm taking the train, and if I'm driving to work, she's getting on the train. Now, this is because cars are complete money pits, and they actually come with extra risks, such as having an accident or something like that, which can end up costing a lot of money. Actually, having said that, I should probably have a conversation with Evie about me taking the car more often. Nah, just kidding. Evie's a brilliant driver, and actually the only insurance claim that we've ever made was because of my actions, so maybe Evie should take the car more often. Anyway, putting that aside, if you live in a big city and you can manage without a car, I'd say that's something that you could seriously consider and it could be a big saver. If you live out in the countryside and you need a car, consider whether it's possible to start car sharing with someone in your family or your friends, something that a lot of people don't even consider, but it can seriously be a big money saver. Now, putting cars aside, let's talk about travel. My wife and I have done a fair bit of traveling over the last 6 months, and one thing that we do to try and cut back on our costs is use our credit card points to convert to air miles and pay for flights. And we've actually redeemed thousands of pounds, thousands of dollars worth of flights just from our credit card points, which is basically free money that you get for spending money on other things. And the key to credit card hacking is not to overspend on things that you don't need just to get the points, but use your credit card that gives you points to buy everyday things. So even if you're spending £1 down in the local shop, use your credit card because chances are for every £1 you spend, you get 1 air mile, and this adds up over time and you'll eventually be able to redeem flights. And that brings me on to accommodation. Whilst traveling, accommodation is probably your biggest expense and something that if you can cut back on, you're going to save tons. And what we do a lot is try to find cheaper accommodation than that we would normally stay in. The most expensive hotel that I ever stayed in was €500 a night in Greece, in Santorini, and whilst it was a lovely hotel, we really enjoyed it, the pool had amazing views, you know what, it was not worth it, and we definitely won't be doing this again. So now whilst traveling, we try to search for the cheapest place that looks like it won't have tons of cockroaches living in the bed. And actually, I've been really surprised what you can get for your money. Having said that, that was traveling around Asia, so there you go, there's another money saving tip. Skip Europe, go on holiday in Asia. Now lastly, never believe you're getting a good deal. There's no such thing as a good deal. billions and billions are spent every year on advertising, and for good reason, because they're magicians at making us click and buying something straight away on our phones. Now, it's easy to be lured into when you see it's 20, 30, 40% off, but the truth is, whatever you're about to buy is still going to cost you money, and do you really need it? I'd say if it's an investment and something that's going to help you learn or improve your skills, then go for it. It's probably a good deal. But other than that, try to say no. It's not going to be worth it and something you're probably going to chuck on the shelf anyway. Alright, that's it guys. I hope all the points that we've discussed today have been helpful and have provided insight into ways that you can start saving money from today. And if you implement these strategies into your own life, you'll be amazed at how much you can save over the next 6 months, 1 year, and hopefully beyond. As always, it's about the little things. The little things really do add up. Anyway, thanks for watching guys. Hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you soon.